Welcome back to the Bearded Console Gamer, and today, my friends, we are going to be discussing Marvel's Wolverine, a surprising new game that was revealed to the world earlier this month during the PlayStation Showcase event. More specifically, we'll be discussing whether Marvel's Wolverine would benefit from the addition of a Days Gone-style drifter bike, which would allow the adamantium-imbued superhero to rush around the world with his knife hands with the speed of a demigod. And as always, if you enjoyed the show, please remember to like and subscribe, and to keep an eye peeled over the next couple of episodes, as I, your generous leader, am going to be holding some video game giveaways by way of saying thank you for all the love that you folks have shown the channel over the last year and a half. But getting back to it, world traversal in Marvel's Wolverine is likely to be a significant part of the game, and unlike in previous titles from Insomniac, the superhero in question can't rely on his superhuman web-slinging powers to get from point A to point B. And this presents something of a problem to the dev team that needs to be overcome if the game is going to have any kind of fluidity, especially considering that according to Brian Horton, creative director at Insomniac, Marvel's Wolverine is set to be a full-sized, mature tone experience. Now, that comment was made in response to fans who were trying to figure out whether this new IP was going to be a smaller scale spin-off or a fully fledged game. However, we can also get an idea of what to expect from Marvel's Wolverine by looking at other full-sized games that Insomniac has released in the past, assuming that is that we can rely on certain key assumptions, with those assumptions being that Marvel's Wolverine is going to be a third-person open-world action-adventure game, as is Insomniac's current forte. With that in mind, and taking the 2018 Spiderman game as a benchmark, we can assume that Marvel's Wolverine is going to have a similarly massive open world, albeit there are going to be some significant deviations from Insomniac's previous work. For example, there's almost certainly going to be a reduced emphasis on verticality, because, you know, the hero isn't going to be part spider and isn't going to have to rely on those buildings in order to Tarzan swing across the map. And beyond that, I have a sneaking suspicion that the open world of Marvel's Wolverine is going to have large rural areas, in contrast to the sprawling urban cityscapes of the Spider-Man games. And that makes sense, if only because I feel like it would suit Wolverine's rampagey style better than a cramped metropolitan area swarming with cops. Also, I don't know, the dive bar setting and the bikers who assault the Wolverine in the trailer just give me country vibes. And as a quick aside, did anyone else notice the Asian influences present in the bar during the trailer? Now, these could either be throwaway aesthetics, or they could be hinting at the presence of a particular villain or hero, or even the game's setting. Though I wouldn't be putting too much stock in that last point, because the rest of the bar is pretty American looking to me. Let me know in the comments if you've got any idea what's going on there. But at that point, I'm going to leave it because we're getting sidetracked. So to summarize, Wolverine cannot web-sling literally at all, and yet may well have to traverse a vast open world. Obviously, his stubby legs, whilst muscular, aren't going to do the job by themselves, at least not without boring the player to death in the process. So how will everyone's favourite adamantium-endowed hero get around? Well, in both the comics and the movie adaptations, the Wolverine rides a motorcycle, and to me that just feels like the perfect solution. I mean, cars are, by their nature, more cumbersome than bikes, and bikes would be able to weave in and out of obstacles without any problem. Plus, as my boys over at Bush League Gaming pointed out, riding a bike would present our steel-boned Angry Haver with the opportunity to leap from the saddle while in motion to plunge his hand daggers deep into the chest of an unsuspecting bad doer. So now let's talk about how that bike would feel in-game. On one hand, Insomniac could choose to design the bike with a more arcadey, less substantial feel, where there are little consequences to smashing into literally everything in your path. Alternatively, they could opt to put a heavier emphasis on realism, and run the danger of the game becoming a motorbike simulator, and whilst that would be fun for some, it would entirely alienate gamers like me. But of course, given that Insomniac is one of the most talented studios out there, they would never do such a thing. No, instead, I think they'd try to hit the sweet spot that exists between those two extremes. And thankfully for Insomniac, they aren't going to have to start from scratch, because PlayStation-owned Ben Studio has already come up with the perfect formula for open-world motorbike success in the form of the Days Gone drifter bike. Now, if you're a long-time fan of the channel, you'll know that I love riding around post-apocalyptic Oregon on my souped-up drifter bike, and that's because the control system implemented by Ben in Days Gone was just deep enough, and it resulted in an intensely satisfying and reassuringly weighty experience that I keep returning to even now after I platinumed the game. Furthermore, it allowed for a significant amount of progression and customization in terms of the performance and aesthetics of the bike. For example, you could upgrade the engine and even add nitrous to improve your top speed, or you could change up your exhaust and add armor to make the bike quieter and more durable for when you inevitably smash into things. Equally, it was possible to heavily modify the look of your bike with paint jobs, decals, custom tanks, and other pieces of equipment. In short, all of these disparate elements combined to give the bike its own character, and over the course of my journey in Days Gone, it almost came to be a second protagonist, just as the Jackdaw was to Edward Kenway in Assassin's Creed Black Flag. It was also a home away from home at which the player could restock ammo and save the game. And another element that I loved was that the drifter bike didn't just run on magic and good intentions. It required fuel, and therefore planning on the behalf of the player in order to ensure that they didn't find themselves sitting on an empty motorcycle as a horde of freakers drew ever nearer. And in that way, fuel was always just a small concern, but it was always there in the back of your mind, and it helped ground you in the so-called realities of that digital world. So in all of these respects, I would love to see a motorbike based on the Days Gone drifter bike in Marvel's Wolverine. Now obviously Insomniac can't just take the drifter bike and dump it in Marvel's Wolverine, but considering that they're both PlayStation-owned studios, there's an opportunity here for an exchange of ideas and inspiration. And on that note, I'd love to see the team at Insomniac take some cues from the world of Days Gone if they do opt for a more rural setting for their game. I mean, that post-apocalyptic Oregon landscape was beautiful and moody, and a lot of the things that you could hope for from this game. But of course, we are getting way ahead of ourselves here. Marvel's Wolverine is still years away from release, and we know literally nothing about it. Hell, there's still a significant chance that it won't even be an open world game at all. And to be honest, a large part of me feels like a more linear and directed story would be better suited to the character's strengths. Regardless, as I said, beyond some vague quotes, we're going to be waiting for a while to see what kind of shape Marvel's Wolverine is going to take. And on that note, I'm going to leave it there for today. Let me know in the comment section what you'd like to see from Marvel's Wolverine, and as always, if you enjoyed the show, please remember to like and subscribe and to hit that notifications bell to keep it here for all the biggest news and reactions from around the video gaming industry.